Hello everybody and welcome back to the World AI Free-For-All. This is part 5. And once again, quick recap of the previous episode. Soviet incursion into Central Africa. Kilwa overthrowing parts of French held out West Africa. And Carthage is under siege by the Persian army. And I believe the French as well. And going to the northeast, the Soviet Union invading Germany and Hamburg. And Scandinavia is, or I should say Denmark, is rapidly expanding over here into Norway and, northern Finland. Really a toss-up over here. Of course, they're also sending a settler to God knows where up here in the north. And the Soviet Union, of course, expanding in the east. What else do we have for you guys? We've got Persia expanding into the east as well. Of course, in the last episode, Hanoi was sniped by the Koreans. And going on south here, big naval build-up over here, as you guys can see, with some Persian frigates and Korean turtle ships. Let's go to the north, where the Japanese situation is much the same as it always has been. And America in a very interesting position. They took San Francisco in the last episode and were able to defend against the onslaught of Shoshone army, the Shoshone tribe. And the Shoshone looks like they've just placed a citadel over here, which will surely piss off Washington, as New York suddenly lacks access to part of the Great Lakes. They're in Cuba as well. Let's take a look at South America. And as I've said previously, I know that I've been neglecting South America, and I want to apologize about that. It's, not a lot's going on down here, so I figure, why really spend time talking about it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the most recent conflict and resume the game. Let's see what's going on in this episode of World AI Deathmatch. It seems to me that Carthage is going to fall. Of course, there may or may not be other conflicts going on at the same time. I think really all that's going on is just Soviet Union and Carthage. Of course, Germany versus the Soviet Union. And France in a very interesting position here. I'm not really quite sure what they're about to do here. I personally think they might try to take Carthage. I'm not really quite sure yet. And let's take a look at the spheres of influence for these city-states. Interestingly enough, both Sedan and Ragusa are part of Persia, where Yerevan, Armenia, is a part of Kilwa. I want to apologize for the commentary on this episode. I'm very, very tired. It's really, really late at night, or I guess early in the morning. I figured, why not just make another video? I'll be gone this weekend, so figured make some videos so I'd upload for you guys over the weekends while I'm not going to be here. So I do apologize. I don't really have much of the oomph that I've had in the previous episodes, so I'll try to make up for it where I can. Of course, Carthage will probably fall next round, more than likely. And what else have I neglected to say? I believe that's just about everything. Keeping a lookout for settlers. Of course, we got some Japanese samurai over in Alaska. Makes sense. And the final city of Vietnam is, kind of situated in the mountains over here. Very defensive location. We'll see if they manage to hold out. My guess is probably not. Carthage down here, more than likely going to be taken over by the Persians. Let's take a look and see what happens. Carthage, yes. They've been taken by the Persians, who now control, let's see, is it 2 non-original capitals? I believe it is. Yeah, they own a total of 3 capitals now. 2 enemy capitals, and then, of course, Persepolis. Very, very sprawling. I mean, look at this. They go all the way from modern-day Tripoli, or Tunisia, I should say, stretching all the way to Southeast Asia. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And Australia as well. Absolutely global in reach. So now that Carthage is taken out of the game, that brings the civ count down to, I believe, 11. I can go ahead and count it for you guys. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, okay, so there's 14 left, I think. Maybe my math is incorrect. Like I said, I'm pretty much brain dead at this point in time. And I'm interested in seeing what's going on up here in Germany and Russia. Once again, Soviet Union doesn't really seem like it's putting up much of a fight with Germany. They're just more like ensuring that nothing gets past the Iron Curtain over here, it would appear. Very, I guess, boring situation of affairs up here. And let's go back to America, where there may or may not be a conflict between the United States and the Shoshone. I believe there is a conflict with the Shoshone, and this is infinitely more interesting, or infinitely, sorry, more interesting than the fight going on in Germany. Like I said in the previous episode, it's akin to watching, grown grandparents, or I guess it's an oxymoron, ancient grandparents playing a game of bingo with each other. Very, very boring. And it seems to me that the Shoshone are charging in to Boston in an effort to try to neutralize the American South here. And when I say American South, I do, of course, mean the southern capital of Boston, of course. Makes a lot of sense. Of course, America making very good use of the kind of cold and inhospitable region of modern-day Labrador and northeastern Canada. Not really quite sure, but Washington seems to love those tundra tiles and snow tiles, kind of like Philadelphia up here as well. And what else have we got going on here? Just kind of looking around over here. I think that French West Africa, I should say, and Kilwa are probably going to be in a state of conflict pretty soon. Wouldn't surprise me too much. And I'm wondering how these Soviet cities over here are going to be, reinforced by the Soviet Union in the event of an attack. And take a look at this. Is this another Soviet? Yes, it's another Soviet settler in Africa. And a German settler in Africa as well. Everybody wants to get their colonies, dropping them like they're hot. We'll see where Germany ends up going in Africa as well. And let's go back to the north, where perhaps this recent colonization effort of the Soviet Union and Germany in Africa maybe be a Cold War, kind of like a proxy war. They can fight over their colonies and ignore each other in Europe. And that's pretty much what they're doing at this point. An interesting exclave over here of England that used to belong to Denmark. Of course, they've got an absolute fuck ton of longbowmen. But what use that'll do against musketmen and riflemen, I don't really know. They probably haven't really considered that to be a possibility. Cologne, of course, in the geographic center of Africa. Very good spot for cotton and later on some oil, which will be nice for Germany. And perhaps this may or may not be the last holding of Germany once they're wiped out of Europe. Assuming the Germans get annexed by the Soviet Union or France. Really not quite sure yet. It's a toss-up. Let's take a look over in Asia, where looks like Korea is still trying to work on cracking the Vietnamese shell. It's not working, but they can certainly try. And let's go south to Australia. Nothing very interesting going on in Australia at the moment. And it looks like there's just like a naval expedition or naval whose navy is better type of event going on over here. I really have no idea. They've been there for a few hundred years. And Germany at war with Persia and Kilwa at the same time. This is going to be bad news for Bismarck. I'm guessing it's the city of Cologne that the Persians and Swahili took umbrage to. They probably won't last very long. See, unlike the Soviet Union, they don't even have any military units down here. So, France and Germany at peace with each other. Or, sorry, Germany and Russia at peace with each other. Which is good. Good for Germany, anyways. And I'm looking over here in Siberia, where continued eastward expansion on the part of the Russians. And Denmark, still not really sure what they're doing with the settler up there. Off the coast of Africa and in the Atlantic, we've got kind of a cross-cultural affairs. We've got Venezuela scouting out Europe and setting up some trade routes, it looks like. Very, very nice that they're integrated into the global economy. And Cologne probably not going to last very much longer. I'm going to give them maybe, you know, close to one more turn as a life expectancy here. And really an unprecedented period of history in Western Europe. I mean, with the exception of Germany and Russia. You know, France, England, and Denmark have been at peace for quite a while now. Still nobody trying to take Iceland. Keep my eye on Iceland. See, well, that's where the nukes are, for whatever reason. Cologne being snatched up by the Swahili. And the Swahili absolutely dominating Africa now. I mean, there's really no question about that. Personally, I'm glad that I disabled burning down cities. It's going to make it so that this game goes by a little bit faster, hopefully. Otherwise, you know, civs can spend their entire game just, you know, being 4 or 5 cities, building tall, not really doing anything special or interesting. Let's go back to... Is there really any conflict going on right now? Yes, there is. Let's go back to America, where Manifest Destiny is not really working out too well for Washington. Looks like the, you know, the American settlers over here are going to be putting reservations pretty soon. In a historical irony. France and Germany at war with each other. I want to see who declared on who. Looks like France decided to jump on top of Germany. We'll see if the Baguette Blitzkrieg is successful. I certainly hope it is. I mean, France could use a little bit more territory if they want to stand a chance in the late game. Of course, they still have 2 colonies over here in West Africa that are pretty heavily developed, which is nice. But I'm just worried about Kilwa, who seems to be technologically ahead. Let's go ahead and quickly check the demographics. Of course, we are #1 in literacy, but I wish we could check #2. Kilwa is absolutely huge at 19 people. Persepolis is even bigger, 23, wow. London is just tiny in comparison to these cities of the East. And New York, at its end over here, getting absolutely bombarded by crossbowmen across the Great Lakes. And New York was captured. Very bad day for the Americans. With any luck, they can take it back, but take a look at their military capabilities here. Washington really only possesses 2 crossbowmen and a rifleman, and a navy that's not going to help them out, so they'll probably lose a few more cities, most unfortunately. Let's go over to France and Germany and see what happens over here. And I really just feel bad for Germany, as I've elaborated in previous episodes. I mean, they're in a really bad position. They're constantly having to pump out units to defend their motherland. It's not a good place to be, really. Let's go to, I guess, the Persian Empire, which is just massive at this point. Have they been expanding at all? No. But Korea has taken out the last Vietnamese city, interestingly enough. And even city-states are jumping on Germany now. That's how you know when you know you're doing really badly. Looks like Persia set up another colony in Australia. Looks like they've got another settler heading that way as well. And it's freaky how huge this empire is. Without a doubt, it's who I believe is going to win. And France up here, let's not underestimate them. They've got a military buildup over here consisting of musketmen, cannon, and crossbowmen. Of course, they're not really making any progress besides just killing off German units. It seems to be the fashion in Europe nowadays. Let's go back to America, where New York is very much firmly in the hands of the Native Americans. And Atlanta seems like it's gonna be the next, I guess, prize for the Shoshone to take. We'll see, of course, what the verdict is on that. Soviet Union, still pretty much the same. And that other Danish settler is just helplessly confused as it wanders back and forth between Nottingham and, I believe, St. Petersburg. Or, sorry, Stalingrad. I was like, St. Petersburg? That definitely did not exist in communist times. That would be Leningrad, comrade. Right. So, Venezuela's at war? What's going on over here? Maybe not. Maybe I just saw a graphical glitch. Looks like they're trying to invade something, perhaps. And look at this. The Soviet Union is actually sending a settler across the ocean. Kind of breed some communism over there on the American continent, perhaps. McCarthy would be a little bit upset. And let's go and take a look at Atlanta. I think there's no doubt that Atlanta is going to be sniped next turn from Washington. I think Washington at this point can hope and pray that the Shoshone bite off more than they can chew. What I mean by that is that they have so many cities they can't support their happiness and collapse like that. But what the hell am I saying? This is a Firaxis game. The AI physically cheats. There's just no way that you can explain it. I mean, I've played games where, you know, you're going up against India and they colonize, you know, 50, 60 cities. No big deal. They're colonizing little tiny islands like this one over here without even the resources too. And of course, India gets double the unhappiness for the amount of cities. So it's just like, what the fuck is going on for Firaxis? Obviously, the AI gets a leg up, so it can compete against the player. And, you know, that was a pretty common thing with strategy games a long time ago. You know, I'm thinking of Red Alert 2, Command & Conquer, even like the first Warcraft 3, or, you know, Warcrafts and StarCraft games. Just real-time strategy games in general. Of course, this is a turn-based strategy game, but the same applies to it as well. Right, so where is this Russian settler going? That is the question of the year. Cuba's already colonized. You can't export communism to that island, unfortunately. Japan's still incredibly boring. I'm not even sure why I continue to even go back there. Let's go now to Korean Vietnam, where workers are repairing the damage that their ancestors inflicted upon the people. Look at this naval buildup on the part of Persia. I mean, it's just incredible how many frigates they have. Let's take a quick look at their resource and money that they're pulling. Let's take a look. 254 a turn, 25,000 gold. Holy shit. Look at these resources. This is pretty impressive. Pretty overwhelming, honestly. And looks like in a moment of absolute clarity, Venezuela has declared war upon the United States of America. This is going to be interesting. Whether or not they gain any, I guess, cities in North America, whether or not even that even happens, I believe this is going to drag into conflict North America versus South America, Shoshone versus Venezuela. This is a development that's been a long time coming. And honestly, the Shoshone might be able to be stopped if, sorry, not Bolivia, if Venezuela is able to get a foothold into North America, perhaps through Boston or Washington, maybe even through Seattle, kind of establish a bulkhead in which to invade from. Of course, they have a fleet of caravels off the coast of eastern modern-day United States. And I think this Stalinist settler is actually heading towards the Dominican Republic, or Haiti, I guess you should say. San Francisco was taken back to the Shoshone. They've reclaimed it. Of course, San Francisco, this is the second time they are in Shoshone hands. The Americans had retaken it back, I believe, in the previous episode, or in episode 3. But that is history now. Right, so which city will be the next city to fall to the Shoshone? I don't even know. At this point, America might sign peace with Shoshone and get a peace terms. They take some cities. We really don't know at this point. Sorry for the sniffles. France and Germany, of course, not really doing anything special here, as to be expected. And Persia very much trying to dig up everything that they can find, obsessed with archaeology everywhere you go. And this is the city that you gotta watch out for. I mean, I'm not even making this up. They already have an aircraft, and it's in 1880 AD. This is scary. I think that this is the only civilization in the game that even has that technology yet. And that's just a massive leg up on their competition, on everybody else. Of course, they've got a brand new city in modern-day Indonesia. Couldn't tell you what that island is named. I know it's not Sumatra. It's next to Borneo. This big one over here is Borneo. And I know that this is split between Malaysia and Indonesia in modern times, but I don't know the exact island that is particularly called. All I do know is that Indonesia and Malaysia make some amazing music called gamelan, which is, I mean, you're on YouTube already if you're watching my videos, definitely check it out. It's really different. is a good word that I can say, because I think most people, when they first hear gamelan, they just think, what is this absolute shit? And it's not shit. That's kind of like cultural appropriation. That's like saying that Western style music is the best music, and that if you kind of, stray from that, I guess, musical standard, then, you're inferior or whatever. We're not, we're not going to play that game. So what I'm saying is that gamelan's really good. It's like 100 different instruments that are tuned to together, and no two tunings are the same. I mean, all I guess separate instances of the gamelan are uniquely tuned. So, like Western, I guess, music, as you could call it, we have scales, we have notes, notation. It's a completely different thing with Indonesian gamelan. And there's kind of like almost a religious aspect to it as well, from the cultural anthropology classes I've taken. This region of the world over here that I'm zoomed in over here, of course nowadays it's Muslim, but it used to be Hindu. And it's an interesting place, the Spice Islands, because they fell underneath, the influence of India, the Indian subcontinent, and then they fell under the influence of Islam. And nowadays, it's actually the most populous region in the world of Muslims. A lot of people don't realize this. Indonesia is actually the most populous Muslim country in the world, which kind of surprised me when I first found out about it, but it makes sense. Jakarta, absolutely a massive city. That's their capital, by the way. Much like any large city of, I guess, a developing country, there's a lot of squalor. I actually have some friends from Malaysia, and they tell me that it's kind of sad because you go outside of Kuala Lumpur, which is their capital, KL, and not even 20 minutes outside of the capital, you have these massive, massive palm plantations. And these things, they're designed after... Let me preface this by saying that most of the time they're on the site of deforested areas. Of course, Southeast Asia, like Indonesia and Malaysia, were originally, an area with a vast abundance of rainforest and, a very rich ecology like this. But nowadays, with the advent of, I guess, globalization and world market systems and capitalism, these rainforests are being, chopped away and torn down to make way for palm plantation and palm oil. And in palm oil, you get it from pretty much every type of food that you eat. I mean, it's in everything, especially if you're American. So it's sad, it's destruction of nature, and it's not just in Indonesia and Malaysia. I mean, take a look at Brazil over here. You can take a look at the pictures. There's, I've seen a picture from 2005 and 2015. The amount of deforestation, that is the amount of rainforests and forests that are destroyed to make way for, I think what's popular nowadays in South America is cattle. They'll chop down some forests, burn down some forests to make room for, like, what's the word? Yeah, just cattle and cows, that type of stuff. And I guess that's the price we pay for progress. And I don't mean to make this just a huge rant about, trying to save the environment or whatever. This is just a game, but I don't even know how I got started on this tangent. I think it had something to do with Borneo, or one of the islands over there. So the Soviet Union is currently at war with Denmark, and it is of my opinion, rather my observation, that the Soviet Union has far more units and far more firepower here, probably even more modernized units, unless the Berserker replaces the Musketman, which it might. But I think that this is going to be an absolute massacre, and I think that the Soviet Union is going to gain at least 4 cities here, maybe more, and it's going to put England in jeopardy. Once that kind of buffer state of Denmark falls, England will be exposed to Stalin himself. And remember when I said that Venezuela was, they declared war on Washington, maybe they were going to do something? Well, it turns out they're not going to do absolutely anything. They're just going to sit pretty over here in Caracas. Take a look at this. The Soviet Union has a colony in South America now, Baku. Of course, Baku, I believe, is a city in Azerbaijan. I don't know where I pulled that one out of. I think it's Azerbaijan. Yeah, that is Chechnya. It's kind of like Caucasus region, South Caucasus. Baku, where is that? Is that Dagestan? That might be Dagestan. If you guys know, feel free to put in the comment section below. Perhaps we got a geography expert or somebody from Baku. I don't know. All I do know is that Washington itself is under threat of annexation by the Shoshone. Washington not doing too well, but they do have Philadelphia. It's always sunny in Philadelphia over here, even though, nothing but firs, and that's about it in Fairbanks, according to this game, of course. Of course, this map is nothing like real life anyways, but if it was, there'd be lots of firs there. So Washington under fire. I'll go back to Northern Europe here in a second. I just want to make sure that we see Washington in case if it falls. Hopefully it doesn't, but it's taking some damage. Going up back to here, where Roskilde is taking some heat. Roskilde has been conquered by the Soviet Union. I believe that's modern day Archangel. In Russian it's like Archangelsk or something like that. I've only read it in Cyrillic. I don't actually speak Russian, but playing enough DayZ, I can read the alphabet, which is useful. I know I have some Russian viewers, so if you guys would like to tell me how to pronounce this area of Russia, I know that there's a city over here in the Kolo Peninsula in Russia. It's called Murmansk, and over here I believe this is Arkhangelsk, English for Archangel. Very important port historically for Russia. Of course, the Russian Empire 300-400 years ago, very much in need of a warm water port, as the vast majority of their ports would freeze in the winter months, and that would effectively, freeze their trade, their international trade that's done through ships, exporting goods, importing goods. Well, it's a problem when the ice sheet is right outside your port and you can't get past it. So, Archangel was one of those old ports, one of the cold water ports. Of course, the lack of warm water ports forced the Russian Empire into kind of committing to the west and south, getting, of course, a foothold into the North Sea at the port of St. Petersburg, modern-day St. Petersburg. Of course, that's a city that's been through a lot of different names in its history. The first name was, I believe, Petrograd. Then after Petrograd, it was St. Petersburg. After St. Petersburg, it was Leningrad. And after communism fell, it is now St. Petersburg. Soviet Union has got some rebel problems outside of Moscow. Interesting to see what's going on over there. Of course, my alarm just went off, so I have to end this particular episode pretty soon. But before I end it, we're going to kind of hover around Washington. I don't want to leave you guys on such a terrible cliffhanger if something actually does happen here. I believe the Shoshone have just enough firepower to not do anything at all. Okay, interesting. Maybe Washington can defend himself. We'll see. Be nice if he could. Maybe even wage war from Alaska. I don't know. And maybe, just maybe, Japan will jump on top of America when they're at a moment of weakness. Of course, Korea no longer settling any cities. And Persia just... There's like 4 more cities over here. I don't even remember these. Herat and Dakiunas. They're going to start running out of names pretty soon, honestly. Kilwa also expanding a little bit, slowly, but expanding just the same. Let's go back to Washington. If nothing really happens this turn that's indicative of Washington falling, I'm just going to end the episode pretty soon. Doesn't look like there's anything happening there. And France and Germany may or may not be at peace. But of course, next episode, something to watch out for is the rebel problem in Russia and the Russian conquest of Denmark. And you know what? We're going to go ahead and let this one roll. I think it's safe to assume that Viborg will fall next turn. So why not just go ahead and watch it? Now the turns are starting to take longer now that Persia and other empires, the Shoshone, have massive, sprawling empires. Let's see what the Soviet Union does out of this. Perhaps they take Viborg, perhaps not. Vietnam's still in the game, interestingly enough. And just like that, Viborg was captured. A lot of border gore going on up here in the North European theater. Alright, so, as always, before we end the game, let's take a look at the demographics. Unsurprisingly, Persia absolutely dominating in everything. As usual. 5 to 6 times better than everybody else. Let's take a look at the religion overview once again. Kind of take a look at the amount of cities we got going on here. 37 belong to Eastern Orthodoxy, still the leading religion in the world. And America with a religion with 0 cities that are followers. It's pretty terrible. Right, so that being said, let's take a look at the scoreboard. I know you guys want to see this. Unsurprisingly, Persia comes out way ahead of everybody else. I mean, this is just absolutely insane. I mean, they don't even have their own religion, and they're just dominating everybody. It's almost insane. So, top civilizations according to the score: Persia number 1, Soviet Union number 2, and Shoshone number 3. So, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned for the next one. And once again, I do apologize for my lack of, I guess, engaging commentary on this episode. Like I said, I am literally about to go to sleep as soon as I stop recording this. So thank you for bearing with me, and stay tuned for the next episode. See you guys later.